Good afternoon, this is Dyer Kennedy with Divergence Analysis. Today we're looking at DVAN SmartLines indicator package available on the TradeStation App Store using the TradeStation platform. We have a 3-minute chart of the E-mini Nasdaq futures contract up. This is most of the morning session and through lunch into about 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I wanted to go over the signals that were given on the Nasdaq 3-minute chart using DVAN SmartLines. So with DVAN SmartLines, we have the SmartLine cycles identified by the green or red shading. When you see a convergence of these cycles into green shading, that means you're in a buying cycle, red shading, selling cycle. The short-term cycle also identifies the intermediate and shorter-term trend. We have histogram bars showing the short-term trend and a leading line showing the execution points and the quicker force within that trend. There's also the long-term trend showing the bullish or bearish bias in the underlying security, in this case being the Nasdaq. Two main signals given in the Nasdaq chart from just a little bit after the open at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. First signal that we get indicated for a long is right at 10:09 a.m. Eastern Time if you're following along on your chart. We see the green histogram come into play, signaling that we should be looking for strength to come in the short term. We look for the convergence process to occur, which occurs as the leading line, this blue line in the short-term cycle indicator, pushes up above zero, signaling a very good entry execution point. Another thing to notice, one bar later, after this entry, which ends up being at about 46.18.5, we see the long-term indicator break up, meaning that we should expect this to go in an uptrend direction in the long term. In this case, a 3-minute long term isn't that very long, but it does give us an overall bullish or bearish bias that comes into play. So if we enter at 46.18.5, good places to exit. One thing about these smart lines is they create natural support and resistance points throughout the buying and selling cycles. So as you can see, after the entry at 10:09 a.m., the prices do move up, and you see the first natural support line as the top smart line here. The middle lines, the pivot line, that's the price point at which the trend will actually change directions. But for these purposes, we use the top line as our exit point. So when we see two things, the price close below the top line, which it does at 10:45, and also the leading line, which is indicating the force within this shorter term trend, come back into the histogram, signaling consolidation. That's where we'll get out, 46.27 1/4, so just under 9-point trade there. We don't re-enter this trade because, as you can see, the short-term trend has shown that via the red histogram that the trend should be moving in the negative direction imminently. So we watch this entire process take place. It actually looks like a nice divergence top with higher prices but lower indicators. And as we can see, as the cycle changes from a buying cycle to a selling cycle at 11:21, we also get a cross of the leading line, meaning the force is now in the negative direction. The leading line leads us into the short at 46.27.5. If we follow our natural resistance lines given by the DVAN SmartLine cycles down with this trade, it keeps giving us a lower and lower exit point. As long as this is moving down, the SmartLine cycles will move down with it. At this point, at 12:12, right at around the lunchtime hour, we have a good indication that we're seeing some consolidation as the price closes above this first natural resistance point. The leading line just barely comes back into the histogram, showing some consolidation might be about to occur, and it's a good exit point. So that's 46.05. That's a little bit over a 20-point trade. So we look at most of the morning and early afternoon, getting out of there before lunch with around 29 points or so, maybe 30, give or take commissions, and and slippage. But these are two really nice moves. The Nasdaq's been a great place to be with the volatility coming through even in the summer months. The rest of the lunch hour and afternoon is not showing us the confluence of signals that we look at for good signals. As we can see, we have a red shading, meaning we're still in a selling cycle, even that it looks consolidated and potentially bottoming out. But it never goes into a buy cycle until almost 2 o'clock, and that's the end of this chart and example for today. But this shows us during the lunch hour and the hour ensuing after that we have a mixture of signals, some telling us we may be bottoming, some telling us we're still in a selling cycle, so it's not a good indication to enter anywhere. These are two good signals. To learn more about divergence analysis and DVAN SmartLines on TradeStation, please visit DVAN, that's DVAN, smartlines.com, or email us at info@divergenceanalysis, and we'll be happy to set you up with a trial. Thank you.